Hello and you're welcome to our second programme celebrating the strong links between Donegal and the United States. We begin today with a feature on the former US President Bill Clinton's recent visit to the Northwest and the warm reception that he received in the city of Derry. Charlie Collins reports.
Making a return to Derry, former US President Bill Clinton walked the city's Peace Bridge with old friends Pat and John Hume. The President was in the Northwest, where he addressed a large crowd in Guildhall Square to honour John Hume and his contribution to peace in Northern Ireland. President Clinton also launched Peacemaking in the 21st Century, a new book celebrating the Tip O'Neill series of peace lectures given at Magee University campus. The former president would speak warmly of John Hume, whose ideas and contributions provided the basis for the Good Friday Agreement. In a 30-minute speech about the peace process, he would use one phrase several times: finish the job.
I implore you, for the sake of the young people and all those who did so much, like John, for so long, finish the job.
Bill Clinton appealed to all sides involved in the Northern Ireland peace process to do just that. In 1995, Bill Clinton became the first serving US President to visit Northern Ireland. Thousands of people turned up in the Guildhall Square to see him, and this was the venue chosen by him again to urge Northern Ireland to take the example of the late Nelson Mandela.
But he said, you know, I got to the gate where I was to get in a car and ride out to freedom, and I said to myself, if you hate them, when you get in that car, you will still be their prisoner. He said, I wanted to be free, and so I let it go.
John and Pat Hume were honoured to have President Clinton visit Derry City again.
John, what did you make of that today?
Oh, it was a great visit and very, very good of him to come here, and it's very interesting that a man of his international status has come to Derry.
Looking at all the young people who were there today, I thought that the message was so right for them, and I would dearly, dearly love the message to be taken to heart by everyone.
The symbolism of the occasion was a proud moment for Tom O'Neill, son of former congressman and 55th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, his father, Tip O'Neill.
All the happenings here in the North have sent messages around the world, around the globe, about the way it can be. My father would be most proud to have his son talking to you, Shane, on Donegal TV about the work that he did and how it's been remembered in this chair at Magee College, University, Ulster, in both John Hume's and his name. You know, when we first started coming here 30 and 40 years ago, and to watch a peace progress over those 3 or 4 decades and how the changes have evolved, and the pride that not only American Irish would have if they came from this side of Ireland, but my dad had when he first came here, and what he'd see today if he had the opportunity to come and to witness Derry, Northern Ireland, and how it's transformed itself.
A number of local musicians and choirs provided entertainment for the President, who was delighted to hear The Town I Love So Well performed by Phil Coulter.
And I wanted to thank Phil Coulter one more time. I would have come here and not said a word to hear him sing in this square one more time in my life. Thank you.
In my memory, I will always see it, the town that I have loved so well, where our school played ball by the gas yard wall, and we laughed through the smoke and the smell. Going home in the rain, running up the dark lane, past the jail and down behind the fountain. Those were happy days in so many, many ways, in the town I loved so well.
Charlie Collins for Donegal TV, Derry City.
A very important meeting of the British-Irish Inter-Parliamentary Assembly was held recently at the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham in Dublin, and the co-chairperson of that assembly is Carrigart Deputy Joe McHugh. Sean Perry reports.
The British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly met recently at the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham to focus on the future of work in both jurisdictions. Co-chair of the Assembly is Donegal North East TD Joe McHugh from Carrigart.
It was set up in 1990 and the specific purpose was to get people talking, politicians who otherwise mightn't have even sat in the same room. So that was the initial purpose, build up relationships. But we've gone beyond that now. This is our 48th plenary, we meet twice a year, and we've moved to a position of engagement where we're trying to engage on common platforms and common policy, and with the obvious and ultimate objective of trying to provide jobs in our respective constituents. The world is changing, the world's changing very fast, and we're not competing just with our neighbouring parish or neighbouring county anymore. And what we feel as a body is if we can compete on the international stage on both the north, south and east, west basis, that'll put us in a competitive advantage over our competitors at a global level. The British are willing to learn from the Irish, and certainly we have a lot to learn from the British, and certainly the mood and atmosphere there today, it's talking about collaboration, but they're also talking about competition. We're still in competition with each other, but I think the new buzzword is a combination of both. Co-opetition is the one I've heard recently, and I think we're better working together because the British, they are our closest political friends, they are our closest political allies, and certainly we have to build on the post-visit by the Queen here, the state visit in 2011, and while the relationship is quite strong at the moment, like any relationship, you have to keep working at it.
Lawrence Robertson, MP, is co-chairman of the Assembly. He used the opportunity to emphasise the importance of the British-Irish relationship.
I mean, Bipper, you could say, well, it's a talking shop in some ways, and I don't take that as a criticism, because talking, speaking to each other, given the history of these islands, is important. In Northern Ireland, for example, it's crucially important that people talk to each other, even if they don't necessarily reach conclusions, even if they don't necessarily agree on everything. The talking aspect, the getting together, is very important.
Mr. Robertson also highlighted the importance of remembering the men and women from Ireland who died in the First World War. This was marked for the first time by the Assembly at a wreath-laying ceremony at the National War Memorial Gardens in Island Bridge.
Well, I think it's very important that we recognise what happened then 100 years ago, and we're going to take it actually further. Today is very important, but we're going to take it further as well in the next plenary session of the British Irish in October. We'll be based in Kent, and we'll actually visit Flanders for a day, a very long day, to commemorate the fact that British and Irish soldiers fought together against dictatorship in Europe, and fought against that, and that is very important to remember that. But we see it very seriously, and that's why take it very seriously. That's why we're holding the event in October as well. But today is important. It's quite moving to be involved in these things, and a privilege to be in the position to be able to recognise what did happen all those many years ago.
Sean Perry for Donegal TV at the British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly in Kilmainham.
Donegal is Happy, recently produced by Donegal TV, proved to be a huge internet sensation and was filmed here at several iconic locations across the county. Here we look at the highlights of this very unique Donegal experience. We caught up with Denise Blake, one of the chief organisers of the production.
Donegal's Happy started, there had been these videos of the Happy videos, Paris, Dublin, Belfast, and I posted Galway's Happy. And Grace Ann McGarvey saw it that night, it was a Tuesday night, and she said, Shane Wallace, we should do this idea. Because it just happened that the three of us were all kind of online at the one time. So it became very quickly, we should do this. But every other Happy video is a city. But we knew we had to do the county. So it was very quickly, we could get this, we could get the Remelton Pantomime Society, we'd get this group, we'll go to Slieve League, we'll go to Mound Head, we'll do this. So within about 20 minutes, there was a very, very loose plan. And then the next day, the Facebook page started, Donegal is Happy. And we started to post pictures, who would like to take part, who would like to be here, and it was the different scenic spots of Donegal that we could figure. We had 10 days. We knew we were under a time pressure, so we had to get it done. So we had decided it was that weekend of the 28th of February that we had to start rolling. So we knew that we were going to be in Glencalmkill at 10 o'clock on the Friday morning, and that we were going to finish that Sunday evening. And in between time, we had 27 locations that we hit in 3 days. There was Shane Wallace, Shane Murphy, myself, Grace Ann McGarvey and Lisa Burkett, 5 of us. It was online that Tuesday. We had posted a lot of photographs from all the locations in the days after the shooting, and we had said we would let them know right away. So then the word was it's going to be online, it's going to be online in an hour, and then suddenly it was online, and the feedback came back very quickly. And you could see the views rising very, very quickly, and it was being shared out from each of the locations, because at this stage that small crew of 5 was now an awful lot of people who were part of the video. So it started to rise very, very quickly. So it was 5,000, 10,000, 100,000. It was wonderful. And then I get the phone call to say, you'll never guess who's been in touch, who wants to post the video. And Oprah Prime. Oprah Prime had been in touch, and they wanted to use part of the video as part of the homage to Pharrell during the interview. The very idea that Oprah Prime had been in touch with us, that was news in itself. So we started to contact the local papers and the national papers, and that became very quickly big stuff. And we had to keep getting the message out that there was only a segment of the video going to be used. It wasn't going to be the whole video, but to be part of the show at all was amazing. And as she's shown the different countries, it comes to Fanna Lighthouse and it says Ireland under it, and then it comes to McGettigan Butchers, and she says to Pharrell, this is amazing. And then the video continues, and then at the end of the video he's in tears because he's so emotional, the whole video, and we were just so relieved that it had happened, you know. Oprah said to him, I can understand how this works. It came from a pure space, and you nearly feel that. He said at the start when the song first came out that he says 0 airplay, nothing, and then suddenly, boom. And as you say, he's a talented musician and producer, and he has shared this song. And to this day, I walk into a shop and I hear the song playing, and you feel good. And it's partly the song, and it's partly our own experience now that makes it even special.
We have 2 contrasting stories on 2 Donegal people who've made an impact in the United States. Kevin Ward, who originates from Mount Charles, is the Chief of Staff to the Police Commissioner, while Tara OGrady is making waves on the New York City music scene. Barry White now reports.
Chief Kevin Ward is a veteran of the New York Police Department with vast experience. He's held a number of high-profile positions: Sergeant, Lieutenant, Captain and now Chief of Staff.
Police Department, we have 35,000 police officers, and there's police officers, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and then we have deputy inspectors, inspectors, you know, 1-star chief, 2-star chief, 3-star chief, 4-star chief. There's one 4-star chief. There's a first deputy commissioner, which is 4-star, and then the police commissioner is 5-star. And there's 11 3-star chiefs on the police department. Well, I came on in 1984. I was in Manhattan as a police officer, and I did patrol and then plainclothes enforcement there. And I made sergeant in 5 years with 1988, December of '88. I made sergeant, and then I was transferred to Brooklyn, which was a busy time, but it was an exciting time to be a police officer. And I was in plainclothes, anti-crime, and then I went up to the detective squad. That was probably the most interesting work I've done. And then after that, I was promoted to lieutenant in '96, and I was assigned to the Internal Affairs Bureau. So I did 2 years in Internal Affairs, and then I came out of there. Right when I got out of that, I made captain, and I went back to Midtown. After that, I went back to the Organized Crime Bureau, which covers narcotics and gangs. And then from there, I went to Staten Island, where I was the borough commander, and then Queens, Queens South, where I was the borough commander before coming here.
Chief Ward comes from a family with a long tradition in the NYPD. His father, Captain Frank Ward, and brother, Captain Walter Ward, both served over 30 years. Chief Ward also said his father had a huge influence on his life. He says his father is ultimately the main reason he joined the police department.
My father came on in 1952 and he retired in '82. He was in the detective bureau a lot. He was a police officer in Manhattan, and then he went to the detective squad in Brooklyn, and then he was a lieutenant squad commander in homicide, and then he retired as a captain. But he was, very connected to the police department, a lot of his friends, and he passed it on to myself and my brother.
Chief Ward is also highly educated. He's earned a Juris Doctorate from New York Law School, a Master of Public Administration degree from Harvard University, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice from John Jay College.
You can be the best cop you want to be, but you can't rise up unless you get your education.
Kevin Ward is now Chief of Staff to the Police Commissioner in the New York Police Department. His family roots are in Killybegs, Mount Charles and Inver, as he told Donegal TV.
My grandparents, Agnes and Patrick, were from Donegal. My grandmother was from just outside Killybegs, and my grandfather was outside of Mount Charles.
Chief Ward said his Donegal connections are very important to him, and he reminisced about growing up in an Irish household.
My father was very proud of his heritage, and he passed it on to my brother and my sisters and myself. My friends always joke they all know all the Irish songs because my father would play it all the time in the house, so they learned all the Irish songs from being in my house when we were young. And it's interesting that a lot of Irish Americans become police officers and firemen and a lot of military service also. It's kind of in the tradition of the Irish people, I guess, to do service and be in the military or law enforcement in this country.
One of the biggest tragedies ever to hit New York and the United States was the attack on the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001.
Every generation has a pivotal point in their life. I guess for my parents it was basically Pearl Harbor, and when you think of the attack on the Trade Center, more people died in the Trade Center than died in Pearl Harbor. So it really is a pivotal point in our country's history and in the city's history, and it really changed the way we look at things. So it's important that we realize, time sometimes can, soften what it was like, but if you were down there, the devastation was unbelievable and the loss of life was unbelievable. It looked like a bombed out city from World War II is what Lower Manhattan looked like, from the collapses of the buildings. So it's very important that we don't forget what happened that day.
Kevin Ward says he's truly honoured to be the Chief of Staff to Police Commissioner Bratton.
Well, basically, the Chief of Staff for Commissioner Bratton, and kind of one of the main things is some of his initiatives going forward, plans for the future. We have a re-engineering process going on. Commissioner Bratton was here in 1994, and basically, when he was here the first time, he basically changed policing within the department and subsequently changed it throughout the country through CompStat, and basically saying that police can influence crime. I mean, prior to Commissioner Bratton, a lot of criminologists said that police can only respond to crime and they can't reduce crime, that it's a social aspect, that it's poverty, and there's all sorts of social things that cause crime. And they said police cannot reduce crime. And he came in and said that's just not true. And as a result, that's where we started to reduce crime in the city. And it's kind of, as we said earlier, gone down to historic lows. And right now, we're trying to basically bring it to the next step forward. I think there's still some crime reduction we could do, but it's going to be much more focused. Well, the city is so much different. I mean, in the 80s, there was, in the late 80s, we had 2,200 murders in New York City, and last year we had about 350. Now we have very small pockets of crime, so it's going to take a different type of focus on it. Instead of throwing a wide net, we have to kind of look at it as a laser beam, and I think he's going to do that. And the other thing is the one, a lot of the policies we put in place back in the 1990s, some of them over time had a little collateral damage, so to speak, with the communities that we serve. And even though crime has gone down, some of the communities in the city don't feel, they feel the benefits, but they don't feel a connection to the police department. So one of Commissioner Bratton's strong things is to really build, community relations like nobody has in the past. So his belief is that we can bring crime lower, we can prevent terrorism, and we can basically build a bridge with the community. So we kind of, it's weird now that crime is so low, but it should be, police-community relations should be at their pinnacle. And over the last year, with a couple of issues in New York City, with stop, question, and frisk being probably the lightning rod issue, that we're trying to build those bridges back. And I think we can do it, and I think in the next couple of years you'll see a big change in that direction.
Hi, I'm Tara O'Grady in New York City, and you're watching Donegal TV.
Keeping close to the Donegal and New York connections, Donegal TV also spoke to famous jazz singer Tara O'Grady.
You had plenty money, 1922. You let other women make a fool of you. Why don't you do right?
My mother was born in Donegal, in Gort Ward, Mount Charles, Inver Parish, and I spent every summer of my life since the age of 1 on the farm with my grandparents, Pat and Nora, in Donegal. I love the Donegal people. I have a lot of family in Donegal, obviously, but just the people are brilliant. They're so generous and open and friendly, and you can walk down the street in New York, and I'm so used to having a guard up and not looking at anyone in the eye. And when I get to Donegal town, everyone's saying hello to me. And it takes me a few days to actually be responsive and polite because I'm conditioned to just look down, but that wears off. It takes me a week to get New York out of my system, and then Donegal sinks in and I start saying hello to people and feeling the warmth and getting invited in for a cup of tea and some bread and butter and all the rest.
Black is the color of my true love's hair. His lips are like some roses fair. He has the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands, and I love the ground whereon he stands.
Tara has been described as a full package, combining Celtic folk, blues and especially jazz in her own unique style. Tara has been compared to Ella Fitzgerald and Aretha Franklin, and her third album, the aptly named Celt in the Cotton Club, made the Irish Voice newspaper's Best Albums of 2013 list. Tara raised in New York City on Irish traditional music, as well as the sounds of Elvis Presley, Hank Williams, Louis Armstrong and Nat King Cole, to name but a few, told us who and what influenced her music.
My dad is a fiddle player, so he was always playing music in the house and having a traditional session with neighbours and friends. You know, our next door neighbour was actually in New York from Glenties, and we'd have family over, and they'd always say you had to give a song or do a dance or tell a joke or something, so there was always the Irish music in the house. And then my brother started studying jazz in secondary school and college, so bringing the jazz into the house and then hearing the jazz and the Irish together in different ears, I ended up combining the both, and that's how basically it all started with my Celtic jazz sound.
Time is coming and the trees are sweetly blooming and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we will all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will build my love.
Tara's debut album, released in 2010, was called Black Irish. It's a collection of Irish songs she grew up listening to as a child. Her unique version of Danny Boy is featured in a BBC documentary celebrating the song's 100th anniversary.
A New York audience or an American audience may not recognize, say, the likes of I'll Tell Me Ma or Nora, but they'll definitely recognize Danny Boy. And since it's such a recognizable song and they're used to hearing it in that melancholic way, when they hear me swing it a little up-tempo and it seems a little more happy, the one thing they'll say is, that was the first time they didn't cry. And the other thing is, they'll say, I've never heard Danny Boy done like that, and they love it because they just feel like there's a breath of fresh air in it. And when Irish hear it and they know what to expect, then they're just like, we love how you've turned those songs upside down. So it's just, you know, putting a little spin on it.
And all my dreams will want that sweet to be. If you'll not fail, tell me that you love me. I'll simply sleep in peace until you come to me. Oh, down there, boy, oh, down there, boy, I love you so.
So, what does the future hold for Tara OGrady? Tara says she hopes to write another album, which of course will have Donegal connections.
Well, The Homes of Donegal is definitely a song that I've always wanted to cover. And you know, I recently found out there's some songs here in New York that at the turn of the century during the vaudeville period, you know, to a modern listener they might sound very cheesy, especially since they were written for the New York Irish and not the Irish. But a song like, say, My Irish Molly-O, it was written by a New York Irish-American vaudeville writer and a Hungarian from Budapest. And I actually lived and studied in Budapest in college, so I just found that connection interesting. So I've recently been playing with that song, My Irish Molly-O, but swinging it like a Charleston. You know, so if I can dance to it and give it a tempo that I can dance to, then it's a song I want to work with.
Please won't you tell me who is she? Please won't you tell me who is she? Please won't you tell me who is she?
Barry White, Donegal TV, New York City.
Well, that's it from our two very special programmes on Donegal's strong connection with the United States. Don't forget you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter or check out our website at donegaltv.ie. We'll see you all again soon, and from all of us here at the team, Slán agus Banach.